She belittled me at dinner. Then I discovered her secret, and everything changed. I am Mark, 22, born and raised in a small suburb in Ohio where people still wave at each other from their driveways, and every neighbor thinks they know your business before you do. I grew up in a family where helping out was just what you did. My parents taught me that you look after each other, so from the time I was 10, I was repairing loose gutters, mowing 3 lawns in a row, and carrying groceries for elderly neighbors. When my cousins needed rides to school, I drove them without complaining. When my dad needed help with bills after a slow season at work, I pitched in whatever I could. My mom always said I had a fixer personality, which sounds flattering until you realize that sometimes it makes you the kind of guy who stays in situations that drain you because you believe you can fix them. That is exactly how I ended up staying far longer than I should have with my girlfriend, Jenna. She was 26, and from the moment we met, she liked presenting herself as the stable, experienced adult who supposedly guided me toward responsibility. She told her friends and even my family that she was the organized one, the disciplined one, the successful one. She would say things like she was the one with the career while I was still drifting. She worked as an HR manager at a mid-sized IT firm in Columbus and repeated that fact as if it was her badge of honor. She claimed she made $2,000 a month, which did not sound like a lot, but she said it was steady and respectable, and she acted as if that validated everything she believed about herself. Meanwhile, I was trying to build something real in crypto. Not the reckless stuff people assume, not random gambling or throwing money at anything with a cartoon character as a logo. I was studying patterns, learning how automated trading bots worked, digging through market metrics, and taking risks with as much strategy as someone my age could manage. I was serious about it, but the truth was that the beginning was brutal. I lost nearly half my savings on a project that rug pulled overnight. I still remember staring at my laptop at 4 a.m. as the price chart dropped like a stone. I had to take extra shifts at the local car wash to keep myself afloat, and every night I came home soaked from the spray of hoses and exhausted from the cold air blowing through the bay. And Jenna never let me forget it. She liked to remind me that she had a real job while I was chasing what she called fantasy money. She painted herself as the person who carried us, even though all she really paid for consistently were utilities and her portion of groceries. I always paid my half of the $1,400 rent, even if it meant skipping meals or walking instead of driving to save on gas. I cut back on everything while Jenna always seemed to have new clothes, new shoes, new makeup, as if she had a secret income stream or the world's most miraculous budgeting skills. It all came to a head one night when we hosted a dinner for my family. It was supposed to be a warm, comfortable evening. My parents adore me, even when they do not fully understand what I am trying to build, and my older brother Ryan has always been protective in the quiet way older brothers tend to be. The moment everyone sat down, Jenna slipped into a version of herself that I had grown used to in private, but that she usually hid in front of others. She started making these comments that sounded like jokes on the surface but carried a sharp edge. She said she was glad at least someone in the house had a real job, and she said it with a smirk as she sipped her wine. My mom looked confused, and my dad paused mid-cut of his steak, and Ryan shot me a look like he was silently asking if I had finally had enough of her. Jenna kept going. She talked about her career and how she was the one who maintained stability. Then she said that some people should contribute more instead of chasing fake online money. She said it casually, like it was nothing, but it felt like she squeezed my lungs with her hand. She said it in front of the 2 people who always believed in me, and the humiliation spread through me faster than anger ever could. I pushed my chair back, told them I was not hungry anymore, and walked to our bedroom before I said something I would regret. I sat on the edge of the bed trying to force myself to breathe normally. That is when I saw her laptop open on the dresser. She must have checked something before dinner and forgotten to close it. The screen was on a banking app, and a notification popped up right in front of me from a man named Aaron G., thanking her for sending him $500 and promising to pay her back. My first reaction was confusion, then suspicion, then something that felt like dread. I clicked the message thread. One message became several, then several became dozens. The further I scrolled, the more I realized that these were not occasional favors. They were recurring payments, regular transfers, consistent conversations, not just with one man, but with 4. I opened the transfers page and my mouth actually went dry. Thousands of dollars had been sent out over the past months. I checked her income deposits. There were none from her supposed HR job. I opened her email and saw a termination notice from nearly a year ago citing attendance issues. She had quit before they could fire her and never told me. She did not have a salary. She was not paying her half of rent from some responsible income. She was living off money sent by men who thought she was single, struggling, flirty, accessible, or whatever pitch she gave them. The woman who mocked me for not contributing enough was funding her life on the attention and wallets of other men. I took screenshots of everything, not because I planned to use them as leverage or post them anywhere, but because I knew she would lie to my face when confronted. I wanted the proof preserved where she could not twist it into some narrative about me invading her privacy without cause. For that moment, though, I said nothing. I took a breath so long it hurt, closed the laptop, and walked back into the living room with a calm expression that surprised even me. I stayed respectful in front of my family. They asked if I was all right, and I simply said I had a headache. Jenna looked annoyed that I interrupted her storytelling but did not press it. I watched her from across the table, and suddenly she looked smaller. Not physically, but her arrogance had evaporated in my eyes. All I saw was someone who built her identity out of illusions, and then expected everyone else to bow to it. For the next months, I focused on myself more intensely than I ever had. I joined 2 crypto development groups, bought access to a trading bot through a friend's friend, and woke up every morning at 5 to test strategies before the markets shifted for the day. I stopped wasting energy trying to impress someone who did not respect me. Every insult she had thrown at me became fuel. I poured my frustration into discipline, and slowly, my losses turned into steady wins. My portfolio grew from 600 to 5,200, then 18,000. Then the bot caught a liquidity spike that made me 9,000 in a single night. I sat there staring at the numbers in disbelief, feeling something I had not felt in a long time. Pride that was not dependent on anyone else. The whole time, Jenna had no idea. She still treated me like the person she had crafted in her mind, younger, weaker, dependent on her. She carried that superiority like a shield and did not notice that it had already cracked. The day I confronted her, I did not raise my voice. I sat her on the couch, opened my phone, and showed her the evidence. She froze and immediately snapped that I should not have snooped. I told her the messages popped up on their own and that her story would not hold anyway. She claimed she was helping friends. Then she tried to say those men pressured her. Then she tried to cry. In the end, she admitted she had quit her job because she was burnt out and she needed support. Not from me, but from people she manipulated. I ended it right then. I told her she had 2 hours to pack and leave before I involved building management. She switched from crying to threatening to begging, but none of it mattered. I had given so much of myself to someone who would never give the same back. Watching her walk out of that apartment felt like removing a heavy coat I had worn for too long without realizing it was weighing me down. 2 weeks later, my parents helped me move into a small apartment downtown. Nothing extravagant, but clean and quiet and mine. I paid the $1,200 a month with zero hesitation. For the first time in a long time, I did not feel judged the moment I walked through my own front door. 6 months passed, and my business continued to grow. I reached $60,000 in profit, reconnected with friends who had slowly faded out of my life because I was always trying to manage Jenna's moods, and I started to enjoy waking up in the morning again. Everything about my life felt lighter, and one day I realized that it was because she was no longer part of it. Sometimes you don't realize how heavy someone is until they're gone. About a month after the breakup, when my life was finally starting to feel like it had balance again, Jenna showed up at my apartment without warning. It was a Sunday morning, and I had been sitting at my desk reviewing some bot performance logs from the previous night, feeling proud of how far things had come. My apartment was calm and silent, the kind of silence that feels earned. I had a cup of coffee next to me, sunlight coming through the window, and for the first time in years, I felt genuinely content. Then a sudden, aggressive knock slammed through the quiet and nearly rattled my coffee mug. I knew that knock. Jenna always had this impatient, sharp rhythm when she knocked on doors, the kind that made it sound like the world owed her fast answers. My stomach tightened as I walked to the door, not because I missed her, but because the last thing I wanted was her drama invading the peaceful life I was building. When I opened the door, she stood there looking nothing like the polished, confident version she always tried to present. She was in sweats that looked slept in. Her hair was tangled, her eyes were puffy and swollen, and she had dark circles under them that made her look older than she was. She stared at me like she expected me to act shocked or apologetic, but all I felt was a strange mix of pity and déjà vu. She walked past me before I could tell her not to, pacing around my living room and talking fast. She told me that all the men who were helping her had suddenly stopped. One blocked her without explanation, leaving her panicked and confused. Another had a wife who found out everything and threatened legal action, and Jenna repeated that detail 3 times, as if saying it out loud made it less disastrous. She said she had never meant to hurt anyone, and that people misunderstood her. She kept insisting she was just overwhelmed, that she only quit her job because it was too much stress, and that everything spiraled faster than she expected. She said she had been having panic attacks and could not sleep, and then she shifted into the real reason she was there. She needed stability again. She said that I had always been the grounded one, the supportive one, the person who made her life feel structured even when she did not admit it. She said she realized now that I had been good for her and that she felt stupid for letting me go. She looked at my apartment with this expression that mixed longing with entitlement, as if she believed she could just slide back into my life because she felt like it. I listened without interrupting, not because I wanted to hear her excuses, but because I knew she needed to run out of steam before I responded. When she finally paused, waiting for me to take her side, I told her that what she needed was therapy, a job, and some honesty about her choices. I told her I had rebuilt my life after she walked out, and I was not going to drag myself back into the chaos she created. She stared at me like I had spoken another language. She tried to argue that I owed her another chance, that people grow and learn from mistakes, that she had been under more pressure than I understood. When I did not budge, she switched gears and tried guilt, telling me I would regret turning her away when my crypto bubble bursts. She raised her voice as she said it, throwing the words like they were some kind of curse she hoped would stick to me. I did not argue. I just opened the front door and stood there waiting. She walked out, bitter and furious, and I could hear her still shouting that I would regret this when my crypto bubble bursts. I shut the door before she finished the sentence. I was not keeping tabs on her directly, but word travels fast when people share mutual circles. Columbus is bigger than a small town, but social groups overlap, and when someone burns enough bridges, people start comparing stories. It began with a message from a mutual friend named Lacey, someone who had always been closer to Jenna but had enough distance to see the situation clearly. Lacey said she was reaching out because she thought I deserved to know the truth that Jenna would never tell herself. I did not respond at first, thinking it would only drag me back into a mess I had escaped. But curiosity eventually won, and I opened the messages. Lacey told me that Jenna did not just lose her financial support network. She had essentially detonated every source of money she had been using to prop up her image. It turned out she owed nearly $12,000 combined between credit cards, payday loans, and the same friends who once believed her stories enough to send her money. She had promised them she would repay them, and she had pushed those promises further and further down the road until she ran out of road entirely. The credit card debt alone was around $5,000, and the payday loans were the kind with predatory interest rates that grow like mold in a dark, damp room. She had taken out small loans that ballooned into enormous obligations she had no way to cover. Lacey said that Jenna had been lying about her income for so long that she forgot what the truth looked like. She had told different stories to different people, and those stories had started colliding. She told one friend she was making great money in HR, told another that her company cut her hours, told a third that she was between jobs by choice, and told the men she messaged that she was struggling and needed help to stay afloat. The lies piled up like unstable blocks in a tower that inevitably had to collapse. When she lost the support from those men, the collapse began immediately. One of them, someone she had been messaging heavily for months, finally caught on that her affection did not add up. He threatened to file a harassment claim if she contacted him again. He told her that her emotional manipulation had crossed several lines, and that he was done being treated like a backup wallet. The others were not much kinder. One man's wife discovered months of transactions and confronted him, and he panicked and cut Jenna off instantly. Another realized she had been sending the same copy and paste pity messages to multiple people and felt foolish enough to block her without another word. The last one, Aaron, was still recovering from his own financial issues and could not afford to keep helping her even if he wanted to. By the time all of them stopped responding, Jenna had burned through her savings, maxed out her cards, and fallen behind on her bills. According to Lacey, Jenna had entered a stage of denial that bordered on delusion. She kept telling people she would fix everything once she found a new job, but she was not applying anywhere consistently. She said she was planning to get back into HR, but she had burned her reference at her old company, and she did not have the qualifications to move somewhere new without a clean record. She told some people that she would get into real estate, then told others that she would start a business, and then told Lacey she was thinking of moving states entirely because Ohio was draining her energy. Nothing fit together. At the same time, she had started telling people that I had abandoned her at her lowest, painting herself as the fragile one, and me as the cold villain who refused to help. Lacey admitted that Jenna had even tried to imply I owed her money for emotional damages, though she could not define what that meant. When people pushed back and asked why she continued to lie, or why she used other men for money, she reacted with anger instead of reflection. She blamed stress, blamed loneliness, blamed society, blamed her parents, blamed her ex-co-workers, everyone except herself. Hearing all of it made me feel a complicated mix of emotions. There was some anger still lingering, coiled deep down like a reaction that had not fully faded, but there was also something else. I recognized the pattern of spiraling. I had lived it myself when my crypto projects imploded, and I lost nearly everything I had worked for. I knew what it was like to feel trapped, to feel like every decision led to another disaster. The difference was that when I hit bottom, I forced myself to confront the truth. Jenna was doing the opposite. She tried to outrun it, and the faster she ran, the more damage she caused. Lacey mentioned that Jenna was staying with her sister temporarily, but they were already fighting because Jenna kept borrowing money without paying it back. Her sister had threatened to kick her out if she did not get a job. Jenna responded by saying her sister did not appreciate all she had been through. The same cycle was repeating in a new place, and the outcome was predictable. I had thought a lot about whether I should feel guilty for shutting her out, but guilt eventually gave way to clarity. I had spent nearly 2 years being her emotional foundation, her punching bag, and her safety net. When I needed understanding, she mocked me. When I asked for patience, she belittled me. When she needed something, she used whoever was closest. And now that the consequences had caught up to her, she wanted to rewrite the story into one where she was the victim and everyone else failed her. I realized then that the person she presented to the world was a character she created, and she believed in that character more than she believed in reality. She wanted someone else to catch her every time she fell, but she never learned how to stand on her own. Her spiral was loud, messy, and painful, but it was not mine to clean up. I did not wish her harm, but I couldn't save her. The tool took off faster than any of us expected. Within weeks, the arbitrage bot was pulling steady, low-risk gains, enough for us to file proper paperwork, set up an LLC, and funnel the profits into real infrastructure. For the first time in my life, money wasn't a problem. I wasn't rich, but I was earning more in a month than I used to scrape together in half a year, and the growth curve was real. Word spread fast. People in my old circle started treating me differently, but the biggest reaction came from Jenna. The moment she heard through mutual friends that the fake money hobby turned into an actual company, she reached out with a sudden warmth that hadn't existed back when she mocked every risk I took. It was subtle at first, liking old posts, commenting on things she'd ignored, sending vague check-ins that never felt sincere. It became obvious she wasn't reaching out because she missed me. She was reaching out because she missed access. Her friends told me she'd been venting about how unfair it was that I got lucky right after she left. That part stung, not because I missed her, but because it showed she still didn't understand anything. It wasn't luck. It was work. It was nights staring at code until my vision blurred. It was taking hits and getting up again. It was refusing to stay down the way she always claimed I would. I expected anger or bitterness, but instead she tried to slide back into my life like nothing happened. Every attempt felt like she was testing the waters, hoping the version of me she used to belittle was still desperate for her approval. He wasn't. The funny thing is, success didn't make me feel triumphant over her. It just made the contrast painfully clear. I grew, and she stayed exactly where she'd been, emotionally and mentally, when she bailed on me. The last time I saw her in that grocery store aisle, she looked tired in a way that wasn't about work. She apologized with this small, shaky smile, almost like she wanted me to tell her it was fine and that we could start over. But seeing her there didn't spark any anger or revenge fantasy. It only confirmed how far I'd climbed since she stepped out of my life. I wished her well, but I walked away without looking back. The weight was gone, the chapter closed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely, genuinely free.